This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we are going to be talking about the Houston Rockets and if they are the favorites in the NBA playoffs. Then we're going to jump over to our Wet Boys, the players that just absolutely popped off this week, that had fantastic weeks. We have two new appearances for our Wet Boy counter, and we also have the 76ers with an injury to Joel Embiid and Markelle Fultz's return. We got to talk about the 76ers and their possible playoff run. Maybe they're going to be the third seed in the Eastern Conference. We're going to wrap it up with New York Knicks talk. I feel like we haven't been talking about the Knicks too much this season, especially with KP being down. We're going to be talking about which prospects best fit the New York Knicks. But before we jump in to the Houston Rockets talk, first off, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. We have a ton of new patrons, and we love their support.
We got two new ones. We got William and then Shane O'Mac.
We got Shane O'Mac 25. So
that's his Twitter handle is Shane O'Mac.
Wonderful.
Big shout out to those guys. And if you want to be a Patreon, head over to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. We have a $2 tier. Ricky and I just recorded the April Patreon exclusive podcast. We also have a $5 tier where you can be a part of our Patreon only Q&A. We also have the $10 tier, which most of our patrons have signed up for, where you're able to become you're able to come on a podcast of your choosing and talk to us about a topic of your choosing. You also check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. See all of our articles, all of our videos, all of our podcasts, all up on that site. And you can also buy some MVP merch over there. We got the Most Valuable Podcast shirts for $22 if you want to rep some MVP merch. Also, rate us 5 stars on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes right now, head over there if you're not, and give us 5 stars to the Fast Break, the Primetime Podcast, the Onside Kick, the Rick and Johnny Podcast, and our new podcast that you got to check out, the Outcast with BOIZ and Juice Man. Anyways, we're going to move on to the Houston Rockets, and we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets if they are the favorites in the NBA playoffs. They just secured the #1 seed. The Warriors are banged up. LeBron and Cleveland aren't really a cohesive unit yet. They've shown some sparks, but overhauling that team at the trade deadline, they're not looking as formal as usual. Celtics are dealing with injuries with Kyrie. You look at the 76ers, they're still young. The Raptors aren't really a sexy pick to take the finals, but they're still playing great nonetheless. Let's ask the question, boys. Are the Houston Rockets the favorites to win the NBA title going into the playoffs?
Ricky.
I part of me wants to say yes, but there's a definite part of me that wants to say no.
It's a hard hesitation on that one.
Well, the big thing to win the finals, no. I'm not betting against LeBron. Until it actually happens, I'm not going to bet against LeBron, especially like we talked about the East with the Kyrie injury thing. I'm back on the LeBron train for them to win the East. I don't think that the Rockets would beat a LeBron James Cavs team in the finals. But the West is kind of opened up now because the Warriors, Steph Curry, going to be reevaluated. It was 3 weeks from when they went ahead and he injured his knee. He's going to miss the first round for sure. If he's not if the Warriors don't have Steph Curry out there for by the time they play the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals, I could see the Rockets going on to the finals and us having finally a non-Cavs Warriors NBA Finals.
Now, one thing, Dave, just to throw out there, the Cavs the new-look Cavs have not faced the Rockets, and the last time the Rockets and Cavs faced off, it was a murdering 120-88. So far, the Rockets are 2-0 when they take on the Cavs, but they haven't faced the new-look Cavs. What makes the new-look Cavs a little more dangerous? Because we've seen LeBron James have possibly one of his best months of his whole career. We're going to get to that in your Wet Boys, because he's been a 3-time Wet Boy in the month of March. What do you think is a thing that's changed from the Cavs, from deadline to post trade deadline?
I think the biggest changeup has been the teamwork on this team. Really, it was coming into the season, a lot of ISO players, a lot of egos, and their offensive setup wasn't really a great system because you had so many ball dominant players that could not work cohesively together. Right now, you have LeBron James and a bunch of role players who are performing at a high level when they're out there. Honestly, the athleticism, the speed, and the pace of game that they're playing up to right now is kind of remarkable because you look at that and it's like, really, LeBron James is playing a lot of minutes right now, and his stats are out of the world, but it's a lot of minutes, and this offense really rides on him. The effort levels from the rest of the guys make up for it on defense. He can still kind of go into that, I can save myself mostly, but if I need to do a chase down block at any time, he's still got it. I think that the athleticism that guys like Larry Nance, Rodney Hood, George Hills, being that veteran spot-up shooter, secondary ball handler, like they just nailed fit-wise for this team exactly what you want to surround LeBron James with. I think the biggest question, though, in that matchup against the Rockets, though, former Cavs getting blown out, this new look Cavs, we'll see what happens if that matchup does happen in the finals. What I would look for is to see the wing play, really. It's, how well is Kyle Korver going to be able to sprint around those screens and get open on the other side of the court? How is the ball movement going to be for this Cavs team? Because honestly, like the Rockets, we talk about their offense so much, you forget how good defensively this team really is.
Yeah, especially what they've been doing. I mean, the transformation from last year to this year. I mean, this team defensively has totally changed, and that's really a credit to Clint Capella stepping up and being an absolute monster. Also, Chris Paul coming over and taking some pressure off James Harden. I mean, it's been a fantastic pair. But I mean, with the Rockets too, and talking about that. They haven't been a clean bill of health. I mean, you look at James Harden, he hasn't been 100%, and Chris Paul clearly hasn't been 100% this year. So are the Rockets kind of abstained from that, or are you worried about the Rockets possibly dealing with more injuries down the line, just like every other team has?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that everything's kind of piling up right now, Ricky.
And I mean, for me, the thing that I'm looking to is I'm looking at Golden State versus Houston because, I mean, the thing is with just by saying like, oh, an eventual Rockets-Cavs matchup,
yeah,
I think that's slapping the Warriors
We're presuming
in the
a little
face.
too much, maybe.
And the thing that I find interesting
This is a topic title about the Rockets.
Yeah.
So.
You threw down the Cavs as your favorite team, which means
in the East, but the
we're
West,
talking in the
West as
NBA.
well. It's funny that since February, so since the calendar turned over to February, March 9th, it's the only loss for the Rockets. They've had one loss, and that was to the Raptors by 3.
And
every other game has been a W. Whereas, I mean, the Warriors dealing with injuries, but even their last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, they've only won 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, like, for me right there, it's going to be interesting to see just the remaining of the schedule going forward because, like, for the Rockets, they have the 14th toughest strength of schedule moving forward, where Golden State has the 26th toughest. So it's like the Rockets, if they continue to win at this clip, they just beat the Suns tonight before we're going to record. If they continue to win and they have a tougher schedule than the Warriors, then maybe I would worry about Golden State going into a playoff against the Rockets because I don't think the Warriors are going to get bounced in the first round.
Well, let's talk about that because Steph Curry is going to be out most likely for the first round for the Golden State Warriors with him dealing with his injury.
MCL?
The MCL. And looking at that, even though if they don't finish out great, again, if they show enough in the first round, I'm not too worried about it because we've seen this plenty of times in every single sport. You could be red hot at the wrong time, and you can just completely crash hard. So the Warriors might just start hitting this spike, and we also see again Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I mean, these are veterans when it comes to the playoff. I mean, consistent runs, deep runs. They might be tired from those runs, but Steph's going to be hopefully healthy and at least rested up as much as he can be at that time. So do you possibly see that happening, Dave, where the Rockets might be peaking too high and the Warriors might be peaking at the right time or be able to peak at the right time, especially with the weak schedule?
I don't know if... And like you said, for other sports, it's different. Like baseball is one of the weirdest sports when it comes to streaks and how hot a team is running in the playoffs. Like I remember way back to not way back, but mid-2000s or early 2010s, like the Rockies team. Yeah. That was just straight fire for the last month of the year. They just
get bounced in the playoffs.
They hit the playoffs and they just hit that wall. I think with basketball, it's a little different than baseball. For me, basketball is like, if you're in a groove, you want that groove to roll. And honestly, it's so much easier because there's less potential interferences. It's really just down to like, can your team execute and do you not get injured? Like baseball has so many little things that can happen. So I think that like for the Rockets, they're hot. I think that's the most important thing is that they keep this rolling into the playoffs because you saw what they can do with Capella, CP3, and Harden. Just if you do those 3 games, like I think they've lost like 3 or 4 games all year when those guys play together. It's insane.
2 things I'm kind of thinking. First off, I'm going to compare these 2 teams to a Final Four matchup we're actually going to see this upcoming weekend where it almost reminds me of these 2 teams could be like Loyola and Michigan, where Loyola, on the college side, haven't lost since January. Like, they've been on a clip since, like, right around February, January.
Right.
Haven't lost in the Final Four, where Michigan's a team, they got hot in their conference tournament. They turned it on. I could see the same thing for these two. Rockets more the Loyola side. Hey, ever since February started, we've been on a clip, and we're just rolling. We're winning games. We're the number 1 seed in the West because of it. Where the Warriors could be, all right, we're going to take a little while. We'll get our groove. Steph will come back. We'll get our groove in that second round before we play the Rockets. The interesting thing, though, is if the standings hold up like they are right now, the road for each team could be interesting because the Warriors would potentially have to go through the T-Wolves, who people are asking, can they upset the Warriors? Then they would have a possibility of either the Pelicans or the Blazers in that second round game. I would rather see the Pelicans if I'm the Warriors. I would not want to see the Blazers in the playoffs. But then you got the Rockets. Yeah, I think they can get through the Jazz easy peasy lemon squeezy, but then there's a possibility that you can see Russ Westbrook and those Thunder in the next round, or possibly the Spurs. I would almost say I'd rather see the Thunder, only because the Spurs in that second round, I would wonder if the Spurs would go, all right, a little bit of redemption here, and emotion is going to play them up. Not saying that I don't think the Rockets are going to get to the Western Conference Finals, because I think they are.
But with that, again, we don't know if Kawhi is going to play this year.
Exactly.
We haven't. That's a complete mystery right there. And the reason they were winning that first game was because of Kawhi, and Kawhi obviously suffers that injury. And we
You're
saw
talking
without
about the Warriors in
the Warriors versus
series,
Spurs. Yes, you're talking about the emotion of the Spurs going up against that.
Well, I'm saying going up against the Rockets, because they would play the Rockets in the second round if they won.
Oh, my bad. I don't know what. So what emotion would be going in with
because
the Spurs?
They had that series with the Rockets before the Warriors, where they should have the Rockets should have beat them, and then the Spurs basically bounced them out.
Yeah, Harden ran out of gas.
Yeah,
I was just thinking more of the Warriors Spurs. So
there's that.
A lot of different.
That's a big storyline.
What do you think is the hardest route, though? Do you think it's the Warriors with the injuries to Steph, with the Draymond, Clay, and KD all being banged up, or do you think it's the Rockets with the possible emotion of San Antonio?
I would say the Warriors, only because to me the Trailblazers are that dark horse. They're the X factor of how are they going to do against one of these teams when the chips are on the table and it's playoff time.
For me, it's 110% Warriors. It's not even close. Like this is a Warriors team that, while it's compelling what they're doing with these injuries, and it's hard to make a team who just dominated the NBA an underdog going into the playoffs. I mean, they just spanked teams left and right, but because of all their injuries, because of everything that's happened up to this point in the year, they are almost building an underdog vibe to them. If they're coming into the playoffs, like you said, they won 3 out of the last 10.
Yep.
Like, it is going to be rough for them. And I know Quinn Cook has put up good numbers, but Quinn Cook is not Steph Curry. He's not in the same realm. They barely play the same sport at this point. It's just I'm concerned because Steph is truly the guy on that team that matters. Like, as much as we want to say KD may be the best player, Steph has the most impact to that team, top to bottom. KD, I'm worried that this guy's going to pull a Draymond, and if they make a deep run, he's going to be technical fouled out, and miss a game. And just the way that he's kind of changed his whole personality playing with Golden State, it concerns me from just are you a smart basketball player still, or are you doing this because you feel like you're entitled now because of how good you are?
I mean, this is going to be different, though. I mean, this is postseason. Again, KD's been here before, and
right,
I know what you're saying.
He's at 14 technical fouls this year.
He's close, but, I mean, what?
I know it resets for the playoffs.
Yeah, it resets
16 is instant one game. So he potentially could get before the year is over, but still, it turns into the question of, if you're going to keep being this emotional in the playoffs when things get grittier, when things don't get called as often,
But
could we
again, KD might change his expectations because it is the postseason. He's been there before. I mean,
if you
KD
think he's
is not
just, got regular season dog days mentality, I mean,
it could be. I mean, it just could be something that everything's been going wrong for him. Through the regular season, people keep falling down. People keep getting injured. You're not the best team in the West. I mean, your expectations could be, just completely moved. But again, he's a professional. I mean, this is a guy that's been here before. KD isn't one to to let the emotions get the best of him, at least on the floor. I mean, again, seeing how many technicals he has this year, this isn't something that is in KD's natural emotions. So, I mean, this is something, too, with, being such an experienced and veteran team, knowing what that Draymond loss happened to them, back in 2015, I think that the Warriors at least are smart enough to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because, if you're going to lose Steph and then KD for a game, let's say it happens in the first round, that's going to completely deplete that team. And, if a team like, New Orleans gets one win on you, or the T-Wolves get one win on you, that could possibly be enough to just swing everything their way. And if KD doesn't come back, and, Jimmy Butler, when he's healthy, is able to slow down KD enough, that might possibly mean Warriors get bounced in the first round. That's crazy to say. But, again, I think the Warriors and KD thing, KD's going to be fine when it comes to the playoffs.
You think he'll rein it in a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, this is a veteran. He knows what he's doing in the playoffs. He hasn't gotten let the emotions get the best of him, at least on the floor, maybe on Twitter, but not on the floor before. So I agree with you that the Warriors have the toughest road in the playoffs, but that's just mainly due to the injury.
Yeah.
But when Steph comes back, and let's say he's near 100%. I mean, we've seen Steph before not be at 100% in the playoffs, and they still be fine. Let's say he's around 90, 85%. I still think that this Warrior team should be favored in the Western Conference because, this Houston team's been fantastic. James Harden, Chris Paul, one of the best backcourt duos we've seen ever. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous what they've been able to do this season, but still, those are three guys in Clint Capella, James Harden, and Chris Paul. And but even then, I would still take the four Warriors over anybody. Yeah. I would take Draymond, Clay over Clint Capella. Is what I'm saying. And the Rockets might have a better system. They might have a better bench, better depth. But still, I would take the 4 stars over the 2 stars. So, I mean, that's the thing is, and plus they have the veteran experience. So, I think a lot would have to go wrong for the Warriors to be bounced before the NBA Finals.
Well, and for me, the thing is, the only matchup for the Warriors before a Rockets-Warriors Western Conference Finals that I don't want to say scares me, but I'm going to say scares me, is a Trailblazer-Warrior matchup. Because I know the regular season, you can go off of, how these teams kind of played. I know the playoffs is a little different. But in 3 meetings this year, Blazers are 2-0. And the last time they played, Steph Curry was not on the floor. And the Trailblazer balled out in 125-108, beat them down. Now, this is all dependent on if Steph Curry does come back for the Warriors, but let's say he doesn't. He's not able to come back for a second round. A Steph Curry-less Warriors, I know that kind of was a little too many lesses. Without Steph Curry, I would almost be worried for the Warriors against the Trailblazers. If Steph's out there, I'm not worried.
So when do you get worried?
I get worried if Steph
because he's projected to be back by the second round.
What I'm saying is if he's not, or if
he gets reevaluated
clear
and he's not
100%. Ready. I think the Trailblazers are the only team that could possibly take down the Warriors, a non-healthy Warrior team before the Rockets.
Is that the biggest flaw for the Warriors? Is just the injury and health problems? Like, what would you say the biggest weakness for the Warriors is, and what would you say the biggest weakness for the Rockets is, Dave?
Warriors is bench depth. That second unit is. I mean, Sean Livingston's no longer Sean Livingston. Like Chandra Iguodala, the dream. What's
Sixth man of the year.
Sixth man of the year for multiple years. Like that, it's dead. It's done. They had their time. I'm sure during the playoffs, maybe we'll see like a game out of each one of them respectively. But their bench depth has been gutted year after year after year, and at this point, like we're bragging. I mean, Quinn Cook dropped 30. That was pretty cool. But like he's a one-way player. He's clearly not, a starting level caliber guy. Even a 6-man is like he's kind of questionable. But like they just don't have it. And when I look at a team like the Rockets, where they have fantastic rotations, their system allows for these guys to really excel. Their spacing, their shooting, that really is kind of what sets everything apart. Is this Warriors team? They have injuries and they have depth problems. That together is kryptonite. Like that's how you lose. And it's just you have to. I mean. You're going to have KD playing 40-something minutes. You're going to have Draymond playing 40-something minutes. And obviously, like, if you can get the minutes out of everybody else, awesome. But those minutes, they're off the floor. I'm not saying LeBron off the floor bad. Like, that plus-minus was insane when he was off. But you're going to have massive problems because other teams don't have those depth issues to that extent. Nobody's got an amazing bench, but at the same time, like, there are teams with benches that are a much higher caliber.
And then on the Rocket side, what's the biggest weakness that you think that the Warriors or any other team in the Western Conference or Eastern Conference could really exploit?
For the Rockets,
because every team has to have a weakness.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like, so here's the weird thing: the Rockets they can play at the quickest pace and they can play at the slowest pace, and they flipped. And during months of the year, they've done both. And during those months, they've been successful regardless of how that's played out. I think the best way to abuse the Rockets at this point is to try to take out that shooting from Chris Paul force the ball into James Harden's hands more than he's used to this year because he has gotten comfortable being that off-ball guy or at least a split role. So if you can get him with the ball in his hands more often, create opportunities for more turnovers, really try to pressure him down and wear him down because we saw what happened last year when he gets worn down. He's much, much more prone to making mistakes with turnovers, poor decision-making. Like, he's played very well this year, but I think that's because during those games, like we said, when he has CP3 out there next to him, he is playing at a different level. I think that you have to attack Chris Paul to try to limit his role and force the ball through James Harden.
Well, I mean, Chris Paul health in general, because, like, since the 20th of March, Chris Paul's only played one game. That was against the Bulls.
But also, how many important games?
Well,
like
exactly.
The thing is,
how many DNP coaches' decisions?
Yeah, well, they can, and at this point, they can rest Chris Paul for the playoffs if they want to. But one of the things that I think is the Rockets' biggest weakness is fatigue. Like you mentioned earlier, Dave, one of the big reasons why the Rockets fell short last year was James Harden was just out of gas.
But that was because he had no one to rely on.
I know. But, like, I look at this year, he's already, he's averaging about one less minute per game, but whatever. It's one less minute per game. It's in the same ballpark. So you're still averaging around 35, 36 minutes per game. In the playoffs, if you're expected to do more, and let's say you go up against, because the teams this year, I would say, except for the Jazz, getting the number 1 seed was huge for the Jazz. Because I don't think James Harden is going to have to expend a ton of energy against a Jazz, a Clippers, or a Nuggets team. The Clippers will be interesting only because they would come in with that emotional, like, we want to take down CP.
And they have a big to match up with Capella.
Like, that one would be interesting, but Nuggets, Jazz, I don't think he would have to expend a lot. If they had to go, let's say, 2nd seed and have to go up against the T-Wolves, then it would be a different story for them when it comes to fatigue.
I'm not too worried about fatigue when it comes to the Rockets because you mentioned he's playing one less minute, but also, again, he does have Chris Paul to rely on, and he's also played less games this year. He played 81, 82, I think, for the past 3 years. James Harden, that is. And then this year, he's at 66 right now. If he plays the next 7 games, he's not going to hit that 80 mark. He's going to be a little bit under. So he's played about 5 less games this year. Again, I mean, that's not crazy, but he's still going to be able to take a break. And then also the addition of Chris Paul is going to change that. So let's ask the question, kind of break this down, and just get to the true answer of this topic is, are the Rockets the clear favorites in the NBA playoffs? Are we saying the Rockets make it to the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah.
No matter who they play?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's a yes. Yeah.
Okay. The Warriors, are they a for sure bet to get to the Western Conference Finals?
Nope.
I'm going to say 75%, and it's all based on how Steph comes back.
Okay. So let's just say it is the Warriors for right now.
Yeah.
Warriors versus Rockets. Who wins that matchup, and why do they win it?
With me, it's nothing like this is calculated why. For me, it's almost the same as LeBron.
I mean, what's going to be the reason they win? I'm not saying like, they're going to shoot 50% from the field.
In my head, I look at it where if we're talking Warriors, Rockets, Western Conference
That's what
Finals,
we're talking. That was the question.
I will pick the Warriors until I'm proven wrong. Like, it's kind of like a LeBron thing where it's like you don't go against LeBron. I'm not going against a fully healthy Warrior team, not 100%, but everyone out there playing.
Right.
I'm not betting against them until I am proven wrong, and someone proves to me that they can beat them and not have LeBron James on their team.
Been to 3 straight finals,
and
and they have
Draymond Green get teed out of a game.
Been to 3 straight finals still, and they still have Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, which is still probably the scariest starting lineup in NBA history, or at least NBA recent history.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
So, Dave, Warriors versus Rockets, who wins why?
I'll go ahead and put myself out there. I'll say the Rockets will win in a series. I think that this Rockets team was built incredibly well. I think the depth is there. The only thing that concerns me, the last kind of thing for them to hit this year is the full integration of Joe Johnson. Like, Joe Johnson doesn't fit the scheme. Joe Johnson was picked up as a wild card. This guy's a veteran. He can knock down shots. He's ISO Joe. I mean, come on. Everybody loves it. But he doesn't fit the system. And I'm just going to be that guy. That probably wasn't a good pickup. On paper, it sounds, add a veteran scorer. Great presence, great locker room guy, but he doesn't play the way they want to play. And honestly, his first couple games, he looked awful. He clearly disrupted the offense. Defensively, he wasn't giving you enough. So I think that's.
But is Joe Johnson going to tip the scales that much?
He probably won't get a ton of minutes. So that if everybody's healthy, I don't think it's a huge thing. I honestly think that it's just purely the system works. The coaching is dead even in my mind at this point. I think that the best thing for the Rockets is just that they've done different things throughout the year. They've not won one way. Like, obviously, the three ball is key to them. Them being the high efficiency team of threes and, dunks is awesome. But at the same time, like, it's just how it fits in. It's how they, like I said, pace up, pace down. They can match you. They can run with you. They can outshoot you. They do everything to the best level in the NBA right now. And like Ricky said, they've lost one game in the last month and a half.
Since February flipped over the calendar.
Well, yeah,
it
was since the Pelican loss, which was January 26th.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I think that momentum, that level of play definitely sets them apart. And I understand, yes, if we get everybody healthy back on the Warriors, it's going to be an incredible matchup. It'll go 7. I want to give the edge to the Rockets, though. I think they're ready to kind of take over the mantle for a year. I
don't know if I agree with you, but I think the biggest thing will be the point guard matchup. And it's not only if Steph's 100%, but also Steph at 85% against arguably the best defensive point guard in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's going to be probably the biggest matchup. And I think that's going to be how the team wins. If Steph's able to come out and be efficient from the field and be able to move the ball and play decent enough defense, I think that's going to be the reason this team wins. But if Chris Paul's able to slow down Steph, hold him under 20 points a game, and hold him to an inefficient a playoff series, which we've seen from Steph before, where he's shooting 3 of 11 from 3. If he's able to slow down Steph on that outside, I think that's what's going to be the edge over. And I think that it's possible, but I think I have to lean with Ricky just in the fact that, again, this is a Warriors team that absolutely ran through the playoffs last year. And yes, the Rockets got Chris Paul, but does that mean that this, again, we were calling this team the best team ever last year.
Yeah.
Does that mean that, now the Rockets have enough to say that, hey, we're possibly beating the best team ever, and we're going to, be able to do it just in a year span? I don't think that's going to happen. I still am going to lean on the Warriors side, and I think we're still going to get LeBron versus Steph and KD and all that, and we're going to get round 4 now between those ones.
Mm-hmm. Totally possible, yeah. I think just the weirdest thing for me is trying to figure out, like, the one matchup, you think it's down to point guards. My thing is, like, remember how cold Clay went last year offensively? Like, yes, he was a defensive god for a while, but, like, offensively, he shut down. And guess what? Like you said, they still have, the best offensive player efficiency-wise we've ever seen in Kevin Durant. They still have, if healthy, a Steph Curry. So I think that's just kind of the weirdest thing is, like, that matchup for the guards is going to be so pivotal. But then you look at Clint Capella down low. Who matches up with him? And that's kind of where I want to take. Is like, there? But
also, I mean, I would let Clint Capella beat me up on the inside if I'm able to slow down James Harden and Chris Paul.
I'll trade 2 for 3s all day.
Like,
but who trades 2 for 3s evenly like that? That's the thing.
But hold on. The thing is with that is, if we're looking at the big 3. If I'm saying one player can beat me out of that big 3, it's Clint Capella.
That's the one you want to force them through.
Yeah. You want to force them through Clint Capella. It's a big 3 in the sense of those are the 3 best players, but Clint Capella, to me, I don't think to anybody, has proven that he could take over a playoff
Plus,
series.
have we seen Clint Capella in the type of stage and atmosphere that series would be?
I mean, not to this point. Last year's playoffs was basically his first, coming out party. But, I just think that they've got the potential, they've got the shooters, they've got the system, they've got everything lines up.
We talked about the Rockets and they're the clear favorites in the West. We didn't get a clear answer. We're not 100%. On one side or the other, but that's what makes this this podcast great. We're going to give you all sides of the coin, and we're going to give you all sides of serious and goofy. And if you see the thumbnail, you're now into Wet Boys territory. And we changed up the thumbnail this week due to the new thumbnails that Ricky made. So if you like the clip art basketball, drop a comment in the section below. But this is now time for Wet Boys. Wet Boys are the players that absolutely went off this week. If they dropped 30 plus, if they shot 75% from 3 on 5 attempts, if they had a monster week with a crazy record or a crazy accomplishment, this is where we're throwing this in there. It gives us the opportunity to talk about the players that went off, but not devote a whole segment to them, or at least a whole 20 minutes to them. So we're going to talk about the dampest of dudes, the soggiest of shooters, the moistest of men, the moist of men. We're talking about the Wet Boys. Ricky, who is your Wet Boy?
Well, mine is the king, the ultimate king, LeBron James. And with this, the decree of he is now king of the mountaintop, of Wet Boy Country or the Wet Boy Mountain, whatever you want to call it.
Wet Boy Land.
He is the king of Wet Boy Landia, as I'm going to call it.
No,
we're not Portlandia.
Wet Boy Land.
But
Land.
he went off. He's basically gone off the entire month of March. And even tonight, although tonight's stats aren't in the Wet Boy counter for this, yet again, another night passing LeBron Jordan with dubs and
LeBron Jordan.
the only
The ultimate
LeBron Jordan,
basketballer.
LeBron James. The only way I could put it is to quote the old Kobe LeBron commercials of what do you get when you flip 23, Dave? Triple dubs, all the triple dubs. And LeBron, the king, he's on top.
So since 3 weeks ago, when Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, and LeBron James were in the Wet Boys, LeBron has now had 3 weeks of being a Wet Boy. So I think that's he did it last week, and then he did it back 3 weeks ago. And then you guys, we didn't include him on the Lyles one, the Jarius Lyles one,
Yep.
and then also the two that you did with Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan.
Honorable mentions. That's how I do.
So, Dave, who's your Wet Boy?
My Wet Boy is Cat. I'm gonna show the big some love. I know I love giving him shit because he don't play defense. He's gotten better at that this year, but still, he popped off the other night. Just a simple 56 game, taking ownership of the scoring record for a single game from Mo Williams, who took it from Corey Bruja.
All the great Minnesota Timberwolves
in history.
Not Kevin Garnett, not Kevin Love, not even fucking Jamal Crawford.
Nobody. Corey Brewer, Mo Williams, and now Karl Anthony Towns elevates his name to that echelon.
I think he'll probably get his jersey retired.
Maybe.
Over Mo Williams. Corey Brewer.
He shot insane. This past week, just 28 points a game, 13 boards, 2 blocks, 49% from the field, 57% from three. Just a 7-footer shooting 57% from three.
And in that 56-point game, he was 6 of 8 from three, which is absolutely ridiculous. Karl Anthony Towns, I told you this is why I defended him against Embiid early in the season. Who's healthy?
Still wrong.
Who's healthy though, Dave?
That was
still wrong.
That was one we can actually revisit later on. The whole Embiid Cat.
Who's healthy right now?
Cat.
Yeah, okay. So
JoJo's out.
So literally 2 days ago I would have been right, but now you're picking the fight.
Just saying.
Both
JoJo's missing time.
Both are going to the playoffs.
One's a defensive, player of the year candidate and one of the most dominant forces, and one is just better than Mo Williams.
Yeah, one top Mo Williams and Corey Brewer.
I mean, with a resume like that.
I'm sorry, like Dave said, Corey Bruja.
Bruja
is how you say it.
Anyways, my Wet Boy of the week is a first-time Wet Boy. Cat, weirdly enough, is a first-time Wet Boy.
Yeah.
And this boy is Trey Burke, the University of Michigan grad. Not grad, but was he a grad?
I don't know.
I don't think he played 4.
I don't know.
I don't think he did either. Trey Burke, though.
He could have went back and got his degree. I don't know. I haven't been keeping tabs on Trey Burke.
The Wolverine, though, the former Wolverine, and it's fitting because they're going to be taking on Loyola in the Final Four. Trey Burke this week went off for 24 points, 8 assists, 2 steals, 56% from the field, and 33% from 3. I wanted to give Trey Burke a couple, pieces. He's been popping off for some really nice games throughout here. I think he had a 30-point performance this past week. He had, a 40
42.
a couple of weeks ago. So Trey Burke has been having a great year so far, at least putting points up on the board for New York when KP's been out. So shout out to Trey Burke. And we'll be talking about his Knicks a little bit later. But anyways, let's move now into the 76ers talk. Shout out to Jake, our patron, a big 76er fan.
He's crying a little bit.
Well,
he was excited. Now he's crying.
Hold on. He still should be excited. They're on a 9-game win streak, secured a playoff position. They're currently 4th in the Eastern Conference at 45 wins. However, the dark news is that JoJo Embiid will be out for 2 to 4 weeks with a orbital fracture. So Joe, their best player this year and their best player on the team, going out for 2 to 4 weeks, going to miss a couple weeks of the playoffs, which is going to be rough for the Philadelphia 76ers. Going to have to throw in Amir Johnson like they did tonight, but they did get a win tonight, 101 to 91 over the Atlanta Hawks.
I mean, undefeated Atlanta Hawks.
The undefeated Atlanta Hawks. But looking at this, how significant is the Joel Embiid injury for the Philadelphia 76ers playoff hopes?
Well, I mean, before I answer, I just want to say something. I want to speak directly to Jake. I do find it a little, I don't want to say funny, but he was, after last week's podcast, giving me crap about the Bulls like he usually does. And how they beat us when Derrick Rose got injured. You make fun of that. Karma, the basketball gods come back and be like, oh, we're going to take something from your team, which is Joel Embiid. Tweet at me, Jake. But the thing with this is getting into the playoffs and their seeding, I don't think it's going to matter at all. You want to know why? they have the second easiest schedule for the rest of the time. Toughest opponents they play, Cavs and Bucks. The easiest, oh no, they've got the Hawks. They've got the Mavericks.
They just beat the Hawks. But they have the Hawks again.
Well, no. Well, I'm looking at Tankathon right now,
Okay.
so maybe they didn't have that.
Yeah.
The Mavericks, the Nets, the Hornets, and the Pistons. Out of those teams, the Hornets might be the toughest one. The rest of those are probably looking for draft position at that point. So, I mean, the thing is with Philadelphia, they could be the 3 seed when it comes to the East. And the thing that could play into their favor, let's say they do get the 3 seed. Yeah, they get a Washington team, which I wouldn't overwrite the Washington Wizards and say, like, oh, they're going to go through it. But if they can beat them, then they could possibly get a Celtic team to where, oh, we don't know what we are going to get from a Kyrie Irving if he will be back by that time. We don't know the timetable exactly for Kyrie. I'd rather be the 3 seed playing Boston than the 4 seed winning against the Pacers and going against the Raptors.
And most likely at that point, Joel will be back by the time they reach the second round.
Yeah.
So obviously it's going to be massive, that Cleveland game that they have coming up, I believe, I just had the date, coming up on April 6th. That's going to be a massive game. If they win that game, it's going to help them get to that 3 spot, which is going to give them the Wizards team. However, Dave, do you think the Wizards are a tougher matchup for the 76ers, or do you think the Pacers are? Do you think they should be playing for that 3 seed, or do you think what should be the direction here? Because obviously you're not going to have to narrow, having home court. Right. You're also going to have to navigate Joe's injury. So you want the easiest first round. You might set yourself up for a difficult second round, but I would rather have an easier first rounder without Joel, and then take the harder second rounder with Joe on the team.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the Pacers right now are the scarier team. Vic has been balling out. I think that they've got good size on their advantage. Like without Joel Embiid, like Miles Turner can kind of take over a little bit. They can stretch the floor out. They've got good weapons. Honestly, the Wizards without John Wall have been very hit or miss.
One of their last 5.
Satoransky is a serviceable backup point guard, and that's great that they found him this season, and he's gotten his time, and he's built up to something now. But I still think that's a team that doesn't know how to close games, which is great for the 76ers, who also don't know how to close games. So I think the Wizards are probably the matchup you're really hoping for if you're the 76ers right now.
Let's look at this. I mean, with John Wall, when he comes back, when he's fully back and integrated into this Wizards lineup, I mean, that's one of the most dangerous backcourts in the NBA with Bradley Beal and John Wall. So, I mean, you're having 2 stars out on the floor where you look at Indiana, Oladipo's been great. Miles Turner's still a young guy on that team. But that's still a young team where the Wizards have been in the playoffs consecutively for a couple of years. So I think that if I'm the 76ers, yes, you'll have to deal with Miles Turner. Yes, you'll have to deal with Sabonis as well down low. You'll have to deal with the veteran heavy, at least, inside. Well, not veteran heavy, but they have some veterans on their team.
Dropping that 25-0-0-0-0-0 game.
Yeah.
That's pretty baller.
But they have veterans like Al Jefferson. They have veterans like Trev Book. They still have Darren Collinson as well. Thad Young. I mean, like they have more of a savvy team. But again, it's they're better players in the Wizards, like John Wall and Bradley Beal. They have that experience together in the playoffs recently. Where again, this Indiana team, they weren't in anyone's mind of making the playoffs this year. So if I look at the Philadelphia 76ers, I would probably want to go up against the Indiana Pacers just because you're matching up experience levels there.
Everybody eats. I mean that phrase right there.
Wizards, right? I would say if I had to pick between the two, give me the Pacers, and I'm going to give you the fan side of me first, and then I'll give you the maybe controversial side. I'm going with a prediction that I made from the beginning of the year. The fan side of me. Go play the Pacers, be the 4 seed, because the Heat are going to overcome the Wizards to get the 6 seed, and we're going to see LeBron D. Wade first round of the playoffs. See if the Heat can overcome the Cavs. I just want to see that from a fan.
LeBron, I know you're watching.
I just want to see from a fan perspective of that series of the Heat trying to overcome the Cavaliers. Also, an interesting question I'll throw out there. Remember what I said at the beginning of the season?
No.
I said that the Bucks would play the Raptors in the playoffs, and who would win that series?
Bucks in 6?
The Bucks in 6. So you can get the 4 play the Pacers, and if you beat them, there's a chance you might not even see the Raptors because the Bucks and Giannis could overcome them, and you're playing the Bucks in the second round then, and let Cleveland and Boston fight it out in the second round.
I mean, seeing the 1-8 would be crazy again. I mean, it's a very rare sight seeing that 8 over 1.
The last one to do it was
Golden State over Dallas in 2007, right?
No, I thought that the 76ers did it to us when Rose got injured.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I try to block out that memory from my
well,
life.
I don't remember. Was the Grizzlies Spurs a 8-1
it was a
too?
2-7.
Yeah, that's right. That was a 2-7.
I think it was just the fact that the Grizzlies beat the Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
Which was
It was
insane.
a crazy upset, but I think. Yeah, so I think you're right about the 76ers beating the Bulls. But, I mean, again, that's a rare sight, seeing an 8 over a 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, looking at it, and not just to disrespect Toronto, but, again, we looked very highly on Milwaukee. And Milwaukee hasn't been the same team. At the start of the year, really firing Jason Kidd, we thought it would do more, but it really hasn't. The pickup of Eric Bledsoe, we thought would be nice, but, it, again, hasn't changed that dynamic too much. Malcolm Brogdon's been hurt as well. But still, having Giannis, having that star, you look at that 8 through 5, the biggest star on any of those teams is Giannis, and we talk consistently. Basketball is a game of stars, and having the biggest star probably in that matchup over DeRozan, over Lowry, in Giannis might play a huge factor into that series. So I think that again, not only would I rather play the Pacers because I'm more inexperienced, but again, you might have the ability to take on the
play that
Bucks.
tougher team. And I did look it up. It was 2011. Grizzlies were the 8. Overcame the Spurs in 6, and then took the Thunder to 7.
Yeah.
That was the year that
run.
That was the year that Dirk beat LeBron and the Heatles in the finals.
Yeah. I'm just saying the 1-8 almost happened last year as well. For those who don't remember, Rajon Rondo almost schooled the Celtics.
Yeah.
But that aside,
It didn't happen, though.
We were weird. I was cheering for it.
It should have happened. That's the point. I don't know, guys. I think that maybe, I guess if you're looking at Pacers, Wizards, Heat, because yeah, those are the 3 potential teams. I guess Bucks could jump up depending on what happens. They are all
came back to the Wizards right now.
That's the thing.
I think the Pacers are locked. For me, the Pacers are locked at 5. It's what's going to go on.
It's a 4-game jump. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, what's
so
going to go?
Who do you want to play out of those 4 teams at the bottom?
No, I'm going with. I think that the Pacers are locked at 5. So
yeah, they're locked at 5. But that's the thing. It's who do you want to play? Because you have the easiest schedule for the rest of the year.
Well, I mean,
so if you guys win out. But right now, they're a 500 team without Embiid in the regular season up to this point.
And maybe it's because I'm looking at no matter how the 6, 7, and 8 play out. Well, really, no matter who's at the 6 or the 7, I still think Cleveland and Boston move on. It's that standpoint of, do you want to play one of those top teams, or do you want a possibility of playing the Bucks? Because really, are the Bucks going to move up to 6 or 7, or are they going to stay behind the Wizards and Heat and be at 8?
Yeah, I mean, that's out of those teams, I would probably go with the Heat are a team. That's the problem. They play team ball,
and the Heat have the 3rd easiest schedule.
They're gritty. That's a team that I would not want to play in the playoffs. The Bucks, Giannis, I don't want to play in the playoffs. Their defense is atrocious, which is the one good thing about them. Jabari is still instant offense, even though he's not been 100% since he's come back. He's still a weapon on offense. Honestly, I just keep going back. I'm Wizards, Pacers. Either one of those matchups is exactly what you want as the 76ers. Because, I mean, we don't know what we're going to get out of Markelle Fultz. He's the number 1 pick coming back, and this is a guy who was obviously the best prospect coming out, but he's also the one who hurt Joe, which hurts me a little.
Well, it was completely accidental.
It's not like
the collision there.
Anything,
that's the thing, though. I mean,
do you think he can tip the scale a little?
Well, I was going to ask that. That was my question. I just want to say, though, I mean, it's crazy, though. Fultz comes back after 68 games, and everyone's super excited. Joe's super excited. The fans are doing the skull chant for Fultz's name. And then what does he do? His biggest thing that he's done so far in the first 3 games is bust the face open of Joel Embiid and then set him out for 2 to 4 weeks. And the thing is that I think the first game they didn't have a lot of Joe Fultz packages. Fultz and Joe weren't playing on the floor a ton, and it just happens. One of the first times that they're out on the floor together, collision.
That high pick and roll, man.
Yeah. So I mean, it was rough to see, but I think it's a valid question. I was going to bring him up just because you do get Markelle Fultz back, a guy that isn't still 100%. It doesn't look like he's 100% out there just because he hasn't played basketball at a level like this. Since he left, and even then he was still brand new to this level. But one thing that I've seen out of Fultz is the aggression. He's not afraid to attack, which is something that's been great. He's been a little afraid to shoot. Hasn't taken any outside shots yet, but again, he's trying to build up that confidence still, and maybe a little bit too blindly again. Taking shots when he's very in close quarters. Mason Plumlee, I think one of the Plumlees stuffed the hell out of him. In his debut. But still, the aggression's been nice. His speed has been off the charts. He's a player that does a lot for this team, and he's looking defensively pretty good as well, which has been very impressive in the past 3 games. But I don't know if it tips the scales with Joe being out. I think it's beneficial,
well, that's the thing,
but you're still tossing out Ersan Ilyasova, who had a great game today. Again, it was against the Hawks. And Amir Johnson, who grabbed 11 boards. But again, Amir Johnson being severely overpaid and hasn't had a great season at all with the money that he's deserved. So looking at it, I don't think it tips the scales. I think it's beneficial, but it's not hurting. It's not helping in the right way.
Do you think they can get through the first? Do you think they can survive the first round without Joe?
Yeah.
Because really, okay, and that's the question, was because up to this point, like I said, they've been a 500 team without Joel Embiid. So going into a series where you've got to win 4 games, can you take 4 games off the Pacers? Can you take 4 games off the Wizards or the Heat? And that's where I start to question, because TJ McConnell's dropped minutes because of this, which is probably for the best, because he's kind of. I think a lot of the problem was Amir Johnson, him together is just awful offense. You get no good looks, and that's fine. Markelle, like you said, the aggression looks good. He's smooth as hell going to the basket. And he's got, his shot count early on has been really high. I didn't expect him to be a focal point of that bench unit coming back. But, 13 shots in his first game back. That sort of sets a precedent.
He did fire up a couple in garbage time, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's you want him to get comfortable shooting again, because that was always the concern. So I think with him back, and I think the lineups that they could roll with Ben and him at the 2 can be really good.
But do you want to do him and Ben at the 2, 1 and 2?
No, yeah.
But
offensively.
We haven't seen him be able to shoot. So, he's not going to be able to set him up for outside shots. He's going to be able to set him up for possibly driving in. But, I would rather have Ben Simmons with JJ. I don't know why I said JJ. But I would rather have him with JJ because Ben dishing and driving.
As a 6-man right now is probably the best role for him.
And the thing that I'm thinking about is, the thing that I'm looking at is, and this goes into whether they're the 3 or the 4. If they're the 4, playing Indiana, that's the one I want, only because I think it's the better matchup with Joe being out. Because if I'm the 3, let's say I play the Wizards, then my guards need to be phenomenal, because you've got, hopefully, John Wall was supposed to come back against the Pistons. He was questionable. They left him out on Thursday. I'm assuming he's going to be back, ready to go for the playoffs. You got Bradley Beal, John Wall that they can work with. I don't know if I want to put my young guards up against that. The Heat have Hassan Whiteside without Joel Embiid down low. I know they've got other bigs, but without that being down there, that could be something that the Heat exploit. And then the Bucks have Giannis. If I'm going up against the Bucks, I want Joel Embiid out there on the floor to combat Giannis.
I think the funniest thing you said was about Hassan Whiteside, because that is a man who hates Joel Embiid more than anyone I know.
Could you imagine if Joel wasn't out there, the Heat knock him off?
Well, I don't know if he plays as hard if Joel's not there.
No, but I'm saying, could you imagine how much that would... How bad would that piss off Embiid that the 76ers would lose to Hassan Whiteside with Joel not being out there?
He'd be shitposting all day. He'd be on Twitter
during the game. Yeah. During the game, he'd be on his
posting times he's posterized Whiteside, times he's blocked him, just saying I got your back when
I just don't think Embiid, gets it up without Joe out there to compete against. Yeah. I don't think he has that level of passion.
With Miami, though, this is a team.
Have D-Wade.
This is a team. That's the thing. They're probably the scariest.
But I'm looking
team.
at things that each team could exploit without Joel being out there.
But that's the thing is you look at Philadelphia's inexperience and Spoelstra over Brown.
Oh my God.
It's not even a competition.
Yeah.
So the thing is that you're taking away Philadelphia's best player, and you're going up a team that's not relying on one player. They have Wayne Ellington popping off. Kelly Olynyk can pop off at any time. Whiteside can pop off at any time. D-Wade, at some points, has looked really good out there.
D-Wade will be able to just absolutely coast to the basket without having the Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Joel Embiid down low to swat away. That opens up so much for this Heat team. That's a team that I'm just going to avoid in the playoffs.
That's the thing that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Boston or Toronto or Cleveland going up against them. But it's these younger teams. It's the Philadelphias. It's the Pacers. Just because the coaching matchup is off the charts right there. Because Spoelstra's going to win anything. He's going to beat the 76ers. He's going to beat the Pacers. He's going to beat the Bucks. He's going to beat the Wizards as well, just because he has that coaching edge.
And honestly, I know this is like the segment's about the 76ers, but I'm thinking right now about the Cavs because they could switch with the 76ers. If I'm LeBron and the Cavs, give me the 4 seed. Give me the 4 seed, us against Indiana. I know we can beat them with the best player in the world. And out of who we could play in the second round, if I'm LeBron, I'm not afraid of the Raptors.
Well, he just kind of made a prove-it game against them last
exactly.
week.
So, like, looking at that.
But if you're not afraid of the Raptors, then why don't you want to play the Boston Celtics where Kyrie's not going to be 100%?
I mean, if I'm the Cavs, I pretty much in my head have a stronger idea about the Cavs winning against the Pacers and Raptors, to where it's like, all right, Philadelphia, have the 3rd seed. We will give you the 3rd seed because we're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals no matter what.
But I'm saying, like, again, you're saying that Toronto's an easier matchup, but again, you're going to get Kyrie at his weakest when he's coming back, and that would be in the second round. You're not going to, Kyrie's going to be playing games in the second round. If he's able to get to the third round, he's going to be more healthy.
I'll ask you this question, retorting to that: would you rather play Kyrie in the second round, or would you rather have Kyrie go up against 2 teams, possibly one of those being a Joel Embiid returning to a 76ers team, and then get the Celtics after going through that gauntlet, then just playing them in the second round? I'll let the Celtics play the 76ers with Joel Embiid before them playing.
I'm confident the Celtics can beat the 76ers with Joe. I mean, like the thing is that Boston
that could be a toss up.
I don't.
Boston's got so many people out though.
Yeah, but Boston still is a great team, and we're talking about an experienced coach. We're talking about an experienced team.
Oh yeah,
and we're also talking about, again, a team. The thing is with Philadelphia, if you're able to take away Joe, Ben Simmons has been great this year, but he's not a great scorer. I mean, again, he's gonna be able to drive to the basket.
We're relying on Ersan Ilyasova, Marco Bellinelli, Dario Saric,
JJ to pull out the the old
JJ's dropping 20-point games like all time.
But that's the thing. If you're putting JJ Redick's usage up, I mean, JJ's able to hit shots from the outside, but how much can JJ win you a series? That's what I'm saying. And with
But they've surrounded Ben with great shooters pretty good shooters in that respect.
Bellinelli, Ilyasova, JJ Redick.
Yeah.
But again, it's a team that still has a turnover problem. You're relying on largely on Markelle Fultz, who again, like Jason Tatum's a rookie, but Jason Tatum's been here. Tatum's been around the Celtics for such a long time, and again, he's healthy.
Isn't he going to be like second most minutes for like a rookie or something? Some crazy stat.
So they're going to have these players that are young but also very experienced. So again, I would rather take the Celtics when they're at their weakest, which would be in the second round when Kyrie Irving's not 100%. And I would rather be able to take 2 games from him when he's not 100%. And you put that pressure on him early and force Kyrie to take over a game when he's not 100%. I'm not worried about the Toronto Raptors, because you just consistently beating them in the playoffs, even though this Toronto Raptors team is a better version of the teams that you've been playing in the playoffs. Still, this is a team that, again, for the Cavs, I don't know how this is turned into a Cavs conversation. We'll rear it back to the 76ers.
Playoff thing, too.
Yeah, we'll rear it back to the 76ers here. But, again, it's just the fact that I would rather attack Kyrie when he's at his weakest.
Yeah.
So I think that if I'm the 76ers or if I'm Cleveland, I'm fighting for that. It would be the 3 spot just so I can have the ability to take on Kyrie when he's at his weakest. So, and that would be the Celtics when they're at their weakest as well. But with the 76ers, are we confident in their ability to possibly get to the Eastern Conference Finals? Or is it first round and then when you're going up against Boston, Toronto, or Cleveland, that's when you're probably going to get kicked out?
I'm going to say if they are the 3... I'm going to say, and this is going to sound kind of backwards to say, if they're the 4 seed, I have higher confidence of them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals than I do if they're the 3 seed. Because I like their matchup better against the Pacers and maybe the Bucks, if not the Raptors, than I do anyone 3 through 8. Well, I mean the Bucks, throw like Wizards and Heat as a 3 seed, and then either the Celtics or whoever they play in the second round.
I think you're playing with house money. It doesn't really matter. No one expected you to be here. No one expected you to win 40 games, let alone the potential 50 they could walk away with if they close out that season on a high note. I think that what they've done this year is impressive. I think the coaching was impressive, and the player development has been incredible. I honestly think that going in, the first round is a toss-up. I wouldn't give them an advantage. I don't know if they make it out of the first round.
Especially with Joe being out.
That exactly. With Joe out. I think with Joe, and it's a different story, and a case can be made for them to be the clear favorites over a team. But with him not there, or not guaranteed to be there, I can't give them a no, you guys are locked for the Eastern Conference Finals or anything like that. It's just, no, I'm being honest. You're a young team, you've exceeded expectations. I think you're in the playoffs. It's the year too early almost. This is your test year to see how well can these guys do, get their playoff experience in, and really see where they're at, kind of, find out what you need to go buy in free agency. Find out what you're going to do with that, top 10 pick that you're going to walk away from this lottery with. So I think there's so much to be happy about that, even if they don't make it out of the first round, this is still a huge win for the Sixers. But if JoJo's back, Eastern Conference Finals is the cap.
And final thoughts from me on this whole 76er talk. I hope Markelle Fultz comes back and pops off. I hope he has at least one 20-point performance, because I've been absolutely in love and watching 76ers games more just because Fultz has been back. But again, I'm kind of in the same camp as Dave. The fact that you're here is ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but it's impressive.
Yeah.
And I think that, with Embiid being hurt, it's going to be tough to get him back in the lineup, get him back. And again, it's not a leg injury or a back injury. It's a face injury. It's going to be easy to recover from. But masked Embiid, is he going to be Rip Hamilton out there, or is it just going to be something that's going to bother him?
Or Kobe mask? They each bust out games with masks.
Again, this could be a thing that...
The Kylo Ren mask just brings Kylo.
It could be a thing where, again, I think it's just a lot going on, and outside of Joe, there's not a true scorer for them. There's not a guy that I'm trusting with the ball late in hands. And then even then, Joe, who's taking that last shot for me? It's probably going to be JJ Redick.
Yeah.
And JJ, again, is a known choker in the second round just because of the Clippers. But anyways, let's move into the final topic. We're talking about the New York Knicks. It's been a very light Knicks season. Felt like last year we were talking about them every single week. But this year we were talking about the New York Knicks and their draft picks. Right now they currently sit 9th in the NBA draft lottery, or they, stand with odds. So right now they are projected to get the 9th pick if everything plays out the same way. And the Knicks do have some promising pieces. Frank has been on and off this year. He's shown some nice spots. Kristaps, obviously one of the best big men when healthy. That's a big if, though, on him. You look at Enes Kanter, has been nice coming over. Tim Hardaway Jr. got paid. They have Trey Burke, who's popped off every now and then. But this team still needs extra pieces. And looking at a top 10 pick for this team, you got to look at which prospects are going to bolster them for the future. Looking at this team, what do you think is at least a position that they need to address for both of you guys? Let's not talk about players yet, but at least positions. What do you think is one aspect this team needs to add?
Well, for me, it's got to be, I almost go for almost a small forward or a wing type player, because I look at this team, it's last year you got Frank to be your point guard of the future, whether he's playing the 2 right now and you're going to move him over to the 1 for the future. But the big thing is, you've got Kristaps down low. I'm going with a guy who's going to be there too, where it's I'm not necessarily going to go with a point guard like a Colin Sexton or a Shai Gilgeous, because I don't need that. I just got Frank last year. I'm going to go with a small forward type player, because that's probably who's going to be there. That's around the type of players that'll be at 9, a Kevin Knox, a Mikal Bridges, a Miles Bridges. So that's what I'm targeting at 9 if I'm the Knicks.
So you're basing off of what you think will be their availability-wise.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what they need the most.
Well, it's the Knicks are in a weird spot to where if they're at 9, it's, are you going to are you going to dive and take a reach for me? Are you going to go take a big that might be a reach around
just
a
answer,
Robert
what do they
Williams?
need?
I would say small forward. That was my answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I was looking for. Because it sounded like you were basing more off what you have your projection
I would go
on your
small
mock
forward, and it would be either Mikal or Miles. That's what I'm going with.
Do you agree with small forward?
Yeah, I think that's by far their biggest need, because Tim Hardaway Jr. can't really play the 3 legitimately. And like Ricky said, with Frank splitting time at the 2, it kind of shifts your lineup in a way that you're not really in a great setup. So you need a 3, and it's the question mark if you believe Frank's development. I do. I think he will be the future 1. So yeah, I think that I'm looking at this team going, you either need a 5 or a 3.
You're writing one off the board.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think Trey Burke has been serviceable. You can bring him back. You still got Moutier under contract next year. I don't know that he's necessarily going to develop into anything more than a 6-man role. But still, I think between those 3 guys, I would let that play for a full year. In a year where you're not just actively trying to lose games.
Yeah.
I think that sort of hurts some guys. But I think with those 3 guys, another year under their belt, you'll see, and you'll have a better idea of what to do.
You have Courtney Lee as well at the 2 spot as well because he's been having a nice season.
Yeah,
and
I'm surprised he didn't get traded.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think he's got 2 more years left on that contract.
Yeah, he's under contract next year and the following.
Yeah, and then Joe has 2 more years, unfortunately, with that terrible contract that signed him to. But again, I think that you can't really write one off the table.
Okay.
Again, I know you drafted Frank with the idea of him being your future point guard. But the one thing that he came out and showed, not only when he was a prospect, but also this year so far, is that defensive side to him. However, I don't know if that offensive side will ever be there. And if it is, to what extent will it be there? I don't think he's going to be a 15-point scorer ever in his career. He might reach up to 13, maybe 12. I think he might be a decent facilitator. I think the biggest thing that you need to do, and maybe he's a little bit of a combo guard, maybe he runs the point when your true point guard's off, but I'm not banking on a guy in Trey Burke who, again, he's playing that position right now because we're tanking. He's having this high usage because Kristaps is out. How is Trey Burke and Kristaps gonna mesh together? I think that you can't really write one off the board because if you have a facilitator and you have a person who could score at that guard position, and then you can also at least pair him with a guy in Frank who is a big, lanky, great defender. I think that you can have a dangerous guard duo, and then pairing that with Kristaps and Enes, if they do bring Enes back, could be absolutely fantastic. And Tim Hardaway, if he's not able to play the 3, you could still look to him coming off the bench, or what? I mean, you're paying him $18 million, but again, this is a team that you're going to have to hit the cap for at some point. Again, I mean, I'm not saying. I think that Tim Hardaway Jr. though is not, again, he's fairly young, but again, I don't know if you really need to be putting him into your future plans. I would rather have Enes, I would rather have Kristaps, I would rather have Frank, and I would rather have one, if we draft a 1, be the 4 on the floor. And maybe you try to fit Tim at the 3 again, and maybe having a true facilitator will open him up a little bit more. But again, I don't know if that is really going to be the right move. Again, 3 can be on the board, but let's look at the players that are going to be available there. Looking at our mock drafts, last time we did a mock draft, the Knicks were at 8. I had them taking Trae Young. Ricky, you had them taking Mikal Bridges, and Dave, you had them taking Mikal Bridges as well. However, Trae Young was off the board for both of your mock drafts, and Mikal was off the board for me because the Kings took him a position before, but Miles was on the board. So let's pose the question here. Colin Sexton, Trae Young, and Miles Bridges are on the board for the Knicks at 9. We'll say Mikal's off the board. He's already been drafted, and let's just say for some reason Trae Young has been drafted as well. Those 3 are on the board. Which player are you going with? Are you going to try to fit that 3 role with Miles Bridges? Are you going to go with a player in Trae Young or Colin Sexton who could be a true number 1 for the future?
You said Mikal's off the board?
Mikal's off the board.
Mikal will be off by the 9th
I'm
pick,
going
100%.
So I'm picking basically between Sexton, Young, and
Miles. Those are you can throw it if you have a wild card too of like a Wendell Carter.
If Young's available at 9, I go Trae Young. To me, because of the ceiling that I can see of the potential for Trae Young, I do not pass on him. However, for me, I don't think he's going to be there at 9. But if he is, that's who you go with. And the interesting thing with, like you were saying, you would go point guard in the first round. I don't necessarily think they have to, because if you're not sold on Frank, I'm looking at an article from DailyKnicks.com, and one guy they bring up who I loved, he's not going to be a first-round talent, but they can take him in the second round, is a Tony Carr from Penn State.
Well, let's focus on the first round
Yeah,
first.
I know, but I mean, that's another thing that plays into what they do. So for me, if Trae Young is there, like you just said, I take Trae Young. But if it's not Trae Young, and most mock drafts have it to where it's going to be either the 2 Bridges or like a Wendell Carter or something, with Sexton also being there, I would go with one of the Bridges and then maybe get a point guard in the second.
Who gives a shit about the other mock drafts? Look at the 3 that we did.
Well, no,
we're doing it right here.
Even ours, none of us had Trae Young going to 9 overall.
Well, I didn't because the Knicks took him at 8.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think Trae Young gets to that point. So I think it's going to be, I'm going to take one of the Bridges at 9, and if I want to deal with a point guard, I'll do it in the second round.
Well, let's look at this though. Let's look at and let's just put them at 9 because they're at 9 right now, and we'll widen this out because they can move up, they can win the lottery too. That's possible, and they could lose more games. They can even fall out of the top 10. But let's nail them into 9 right now. Number 1, Luka or Ayton's going. Number 2, Luka or Ayton's going.
Yeah.
So then Memphis, Porter Jr. is most likely going to be off, or we can throw in
Triple J.
Triple J. We can also throw in Bagley.
Yep.
Orlando, we can take off, possibly Trae Young there.
That's the earliest I could see him going, yeah.
But then we can go MPJ, JJJ, or Bagley as well. Then Dallas, Bombo, starts to put his name in there. MPJ still sticks around. Any of those guys. Sacramento, and then Bridges comes back around as well. Both of them. Probably, I would say McHale goes there. 7, if Bamba's still around, I think Cleveland could possibly go with Mo Bamba. They could even trade that pick. And then 8, the Bridges might be off by then, and you might have to go with a Colin Sexton at that point. So. Again, it's difficult to really nail in what's going to happen at 9, but if both of the Bridges are gone, because Chicago needs a 3, Sacramento needs a 3, even Orlando could possibly need a 3 as well. I don't think
if Cleveland
McHale or Miles are going to go there.
Done with LeBron, they could take a 3. It's entirely possible.
If both of the Bridges are off the board at 9, then to me the shift in thought process goes: do we go with the next available 3, which would be Kevin Knox?
Yep.
Or do I start thinking about what Dave said? I need a big, someone who can play the 5. I'm either going with a Wendell Carter or a Robert Williams, who would probably be the next 2 bigs on the board available.
Yeah.
It could be a stretch, but
Robert Williams is. Wendell Carter.
I see.
That's what I think of. And it's to me, I feel like point guard at 9 after just drafting Frank. If you draft a point guard this year, you're saying to Frank, you're not our future point guard.
Yeah, you're saying you're our future too.
Exactly.
Which I don't think is a big deal.
And I don't think you have to make that decision with hey, let's go with this point guard, when there's so many other players you can take to fill out a team at a different position. It's if you believe Frank's going to be your future 1, don't fucking go away from that after 1 year.
Well,
go into that, give him another year to develop into it, and go with a different position. I would probably take, if it was Knox, Carter, or Williams, I'd probably then go with what Dave was saying. Let's move to the 5 discussion and take a Wendell Carter.
Well, again, just with the Frank thing, if they believe he's their future 1,
right,
then obviously don't take a 1.
Yeah.
But looking at what Frank has brought this year, and again, you have to take in how he's going to progress. I just don't think he's going to be a 1 in the NBA. I think that he could possibly be a spot-up shooter on the outside. He's got a decent stroke. We've seen that come up a little bit. It's not consistent yet, but again, you're going to think that's going to come around at some point. But I just don't see the passing ability yet for him to be a 1 in the NBA. And again, if he's able to develop that passing ability, and he's able to develop that court vision, he's going to be a disgusting 1 with his size and his speed. But then again, it's just there's a lot for him to make up until he's a 1 in the NBA. And if there's a guy like Colin Sexton there who's already a 1 in the NBA, without a doubt in my mind, has that killer instinct that I think is kind of lacking on this New York team, it's going to be something that is going to be hard for the New York Knicks to pass up on. Because we mentioned the Bridges being off. Sexton's still going to be available. We talked about Trae Young possibly going at 4, but Sexton's still going to be available at that 9 spot. And if Sexton's available, you're going to pair him with Frank, Kristaps, Enes. Disgusting in my mind.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been moving up a lot of people's boards really quickly.
That's a good point.
I'm starting to get turned on this one. I think you're convinced me that it really does depend on the roll of the dice. If there is I think Knox is clearly a notch below the Bridges as far as 3s are concerned. I know Miles might be more of a 4, but he's a tweener. He's a wing. I agree. Knox is a step below, so I might then reconsider it. I mean, Wendell Carter would be a nice add. I think that he could pair well with KP. I think that he's done a lot of the dirty work for his team this year. Obviously, the second big on his team under Bagley, but at the same time, he has a good shot, good defensively. He is able to keep the area around the basket well guarded. I'm just at that point. You're right. If Bridges are gone, and I'm down between Wendell and a couple point guards, that kind of becomes spicy then, because I think that there's the case to move for a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that high up. I think there is a case to go with Wendell Carter. Trae Young's just, I don't know, man. If he's gone, he's gone, whatever. But if you're giving me the options, I want to go full in on Ricky.
If he's there at 9, take him.
Why not? Why not just give it a shot? And you could pair, one of the best shooting point guards we've seen in recent history coming out of college.
Already a good passer.
With Frank being the 2 to cover up for him defensively.
That's what I'm saying.
And those 2 together, yes, you're going to force Tim Hardaway Jr. to play out of position at the 3, but that's not the end of the world. I think that you can work around that.
Who's going to be the biggest star, though? Out of Tim Hardaway Jr., Frank, and Trae Young. Who's going to be the biggest star?
I mean,
it's Trae Young.
It's Trae Young
So
already.
But no, make Tim Hardaway play the 3.
It's
like,
the money.
I don't care about.
It's are you going to win games? Like I mean, that's
yeah. But I mean,
that's
like,
what you're trying to do here,
again,
Sean.
well,
You're trying to win games
again. But Tim Hardaway is a thing where yes, you paid him $18 million, but paying him $18 million doesn't mean that he should be
He's
in
your future.
Well, not even that, but he should be in the starting lineup. Like you should be able to move around these players into the best fit. Again, I'm not saying Tim Hardaway has been bad this year, but again, you want to be able to win games. You have to be able to what's doing best for your team and have the right fit on your floor. So if Tim Hardaway is coming off the bench and still playing 30 minutes, I don't think it's a big deal. But you want to have the best rotations out there, and maybe when Frank gets tired, you're able to switch him and Trae Young out, and you have a offensive
3-man core basically.
Yeah.
You're saying at the guard.
Like again, like just coming off the bench, I think is a negative stereotype. But being a 6-man is still a major part. Yeah, and I mean, Lou Williams has made a name from it. Jamal Crawford's made a name from it. And again, I don't think anyone believes Tim Hardaway is going to be a star in the NBA. And being paid $18 million doesn't mean you should be a starter in the NBA. It means that you deserve $18 million to be on an NBA team because you could still serve a valuable role to that team. But it doesn't mean that at any fucking reason that you should be a fucking starter. Look at Timofey as well.
And here's another thing I think about when it comes to this draft with the Knicks is no matter who you take, we'll just lock them in at 9 because we don't know what's going to happen with the lottery and stuff.
Yeah, we'll open it up in a little bit.
No matter who you take there, are they going to make you a playoff team? Probably not. And the thing that I'm doing is the thing that I would do if I was a GM or the owner is I'm looking forward. All right, and the thing where I'm kind of almost in my head, almost being like I'm not shutting the point guard out completely now in the first round is looking to next year's draft, where the top 2 point guards that people are projecting are either going to be Quickly, who's committed to Kentucky, or Darius Garland, who's committed to Vandy. Those are the top 2 guys right now. Of course, anything can happen in a college season. Or are you going to bank on, all right, let's get that Colin Sexton now, and then maybe we can have a possibility to get a guy like a Ball next year. What if we're 1-2 and we can get a Zion or a RJ Barrett in the draft next year? Because I think the Knicks aren't going to be at a point where it's like we're in the playoffs.
Why is that, though? I mean, right now this team is, again, 11th in the East, and it's not great. But again, this team, when KP was healthy, wasn't bad on the floor. I mean, they weren't a great team, but they still were in the playoff hunt when KP was healthy.
Free agency, they can bring stuff in for free agency. With the draft alone, I don't know if it's enough to push them to a playoff team. If they get LeBron, then yeah, they're a playoff team.
I agree with you. I'm not saying LeBron though. One thing that
you just pointed free agency. I was like, I got to throw that out.
One thing that Jeff Hornacek, I was going to actually take the conversation in that direction.
Okay.
Jeff Hornacek said that the inclusion of the triangle last year drove away free agents from the New York Knicks.
Well, so now the triangle's gone.
Yeah, now being away from the triangle, now having that extra year, now having KP, now having that possibility of playing with Trae Young. That NBA players have come out and Susan LeBron as an example have come out and said that they would want to play with him. Again, that could be something that's very enticing for free agency. And again, we see a ton of wings in the NBA. Again, we see a ton of point guards as well. But if you have a 5 lockdown in Enos, if you have a 4 lockdown in Kristaps, you have a 2 lockdown in Frank, and you're able to address the 1 or 3 in the draft and then throw money at one of those other positions to fill that hole, I think this Knicks team could possibly be, again, an Eastern Conference that might be weakened with LeBron gone. Fuck, they could be a playoff team.
And for me personally, around that area,
like an 8 seed? I think that's crazy.
Knicks fans don't get too excited because I'm hoping that the Bulls wise up and draft him at 8 if that's where we're at. But if Trae Young's gone because he's the only prospect that we've mentioned that would be a for sure, I'm going ahead and taking him at 9 if he's there. But I would love to get a Mikal Bridges just because of what he can bring to a team defensively. And he's not no slouch offensively as well, where it's like, you know what? Give me that, and I don't even care if I draft that 3. And then I know people will be like, well, if you get LeBron, you're getting a 3 as well. No, you get LeBron, you're getting everything. You're getting every position.
You get 1 through 5, baby.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm a Knick fan, that's the player that I would really want is a Mikal Bridges because of what he can bring to the Knicks defensively. Because as a Bulls fan, I want him on the Bulls. I want him to be April's pick.
Jake was saying that he wants him in the 76ers too. So
everyone should want Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I think this is a sexy pick in Mikal Bridges. I mean, again, he's a modern day wing.
But
and
like you said, he goes as early as 5. We're thinking right now, and that's where I'm like, I don't think there's any circumstance where the Knicks get him at 9.
Well, let's broaden this out because again, this is the NBA lottery. Anything can happen. So we can open this up to any pick. What prospects best fit them? Obviously, we've mentioned Mikal, we've mentioned Miles. Are there any other players that are in this top 3, in this top 5, that could possibly really put the Knicks into, really draw the Knicks' attention? We talked about Bagley before with nice fits for Bagley. Bagley on the Knicks could be nice with him and KP. Possibly getting a Mo Bamba with a rim protector there.
Mo Bamba would be kind of crazy.
Or
the length down low.
Or hey, maybe if they get the number 1 pick, hello, Luka Doncic, be exciting.
Yeah, dude. I'm just saying, like the only guys I don't like fit-wise for them would be, and that even sounds stupid, like Jaren Jackson. No, not Jaren. Michael Porter. Michael Porter is a question mark because I just don't, his health the way it is, and if he comes back, if he's more of a 4 than a 3, like it forces KP to play in a position he doesn't love to play.
Well, and then you have a 4 or 5 that are consistently injured.
Yeah, I mean that's not what you want. Outside of him, any pick in the top 10, like our top 10, consensus top 10, basically. I would be happy with any one of those guys walking away as Nick. I don't think there's a bad fit amongst them. That's the crazy thing. Is like this is a team, like you said, they have 2 centerpieces they think for the future with KP and Frank, and you could hit 1 through 10 as long as you get a guy there. Like I think there's an opportunity.
You know who would be really interesting on the Knicks? Because like the comment section this week has been like, oh, you can't build around him. He wouldn't be a good fit when we were talking about the Hawks last week. But if they were in a position, they fell in the right spot, got a Mo Bamba, then it's like, all right, KP can play the 4. That's a position that he likes to play because Mo would be our center.
Right.
And we're not necessarily building around a defensive center. Yeah, you're our defensive center, but we've got KP, who's an also big, who is defensive but is offensive as well. So it's not like we have to build
he's
just
an all-around player.
Yeah, he's an all-around player.
That was the weirdest description.
But, like, Mo Bamba could be a good fit for the Knicks as well. If they rose in the lottery and got maybe, like, a 3 or a 4.
Well, I think that's one thing that makes Bagley so interesting for the Knicks, at least in my mind, is probably a prospect that's super interesting.
But would you play Bagley at the 5? Or would you play him at the 4 and do what Dave said, move KP to a position he doesn't like playing?
I don't think it really matters. I think offensively you can just find spots for him because offensively he's going to be playing more where a 5 would play.
Yeah,
and KP would be playing more where a 4 would play. And then defensively you can just make the switch.
He just doesn't play defense. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, and that's the but that's the thing.
Kristaps
does.
No one on. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, Kristaps has.
So
great
you'll be
reach.
able to hide some of that because Marvin Bagley's not good defensively at all. Like terribly.
Teams abused him every game during the playoffs, during the tournament. But that's the thing is like, do you want to take a guy with Kristaps who has the mobility to play outside and shut down stretch 4s and stretch 5s and force him to go inside and make sure be more of a rim protector? Like, I don't know. I mean, it gives them a different look. I'm not saying if it's necessarily going to be better than what they have right now, because Kanter is not exactly known for his defensive prowess, but he still has come a long way from where he started, where it was just an absolute joke to have him on the court for defense. But I don't know. I think Bagley, just the intensity, the energy he brings, and the quickness. There's the ability to learn defense there, I believe. I don't think it's a Ja situation where this kid is just like, he ain't doing it.
I think it's more like a Cat situation.
No, Cat physically is better than Bagley, I think. But Bagley's no slouch. So
yeah. I mean, like physically, I mean, Cat's just
that's
bigger.
What I'm saying. Like he's quicker, bigger, longer, and
But then again, we've seen that, and again, you could have all the physicals, and I mean, look at DeAndre Ayton. I mean, you just might not be able to play defense because either you don't care, or you're not able to play defense for some reason.
Ain't gonna do it.
But I think again with the Knicks, you can go many different directions, and then that's obviously going to affect their free agency. And this team has some money, especially if they're able to somehow unload Joakim Noah's contract. This could be something that you look at this team, and again we're saying that they're probably a couple pieces away from the starting lineup. And if that means Frank's at the 1, Tim Hardaway's at the 2, you still just need to fill the 3 and the 5. If you're able to fill the 1 or you're able to fill the 3 during the draft, then you just have to fit the 1 and the 5 or the 2 and the 5. So the 1 and the 5. So I mean, again, there's a ton of different ways the Knicks can go. It's just really about making sure that you're able to fit the right pieces I'm saying at least culturally, because if you're not a great fit culturally in New York, you're going to get absolutely torn apart. So I think you have to look at strong-willed players, strong-minded players, and that's why I look at a guy like Miles Bridges, has been through a lot at Michigan State, has had a great coach in Tom Izzo. I think that could be huge right there. Marvin Bagley being a part of Coach K's system could be a great fit. Luka, if they're somehow up at that position to take him, he's shown a lot of maturity. He's a true professional. I think that could be something super interesting. But then maybe going away from players like Mo Bamba, where I'm not saying mentally he's not there, but a guy that hasn't been put in a ton of pressure, a guy that had a lot to deal with in the Texas program. But again, is it enough to where he's mentally strong enough to handle New York? And if he's not able to produce right away, and they're expected to win, especially if they get a big free agent splash, will be able to handle it. So I think the biggest thing with the Knicks is a lot of the players that are in this draft, and especially in the top 10, will fit their mindset or fit their scheme, but you got to find a player that's at least smart and at least going to be able to fit the scheme. So that's why I look at, like I mentioned, Miles Bridges and then Colin Sexton as well, because we look at that 3-on-5 situation. And again, he's been with Avery Johnson, who's been in the league as a coach and a player. I think that those two have the right it factors to really fit in New York. Same with Trae Young as well, just because he had so much pressure on him and has dealt with a ton of media already. Yeah. Throw him in New York, I think he's going to be fine. But with the Knicks, do you think this is probably the last draft that they'll have in the top 10, especially if they have a good year next year and KP's able to stay healthy? Do you think that they hit the hit on this draft?
Top 10, yes, but I still think they could be a lottery team next year.
Yeah, I'm saying. Yeah,
top 10, yes, this could be the last one, but you could be 11 or 12 next year, so it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, I think there's still a lottery team. I mean, it's the East, like you said. Anything can happen where they waltz into the playoffs somehow.
They could be the 76ers, and we
don't expect the 76ers.
No, but I'm saying they're not going to make the playoffs, and then they do, or like the Bulls last year.
That would
I probably expect them to be in the same general range next year. In between 7 and 12 is probably my best bet. I think they won't be the worst team in the league, but there's enough talent on this team to carry them through.
If they are nailed in at 9, do they move up? Do they try to move up to get a guy that they need, like a Bridges?
That's the question. What are you moving to get up? I mean,
what are you giving up to move up?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Probably futures. For sure. I mean, there's not a lot of players.
I was gonna say,
I'm not selling my future to move up just for like a Bridges or something.
Bridges is the ultimate 3-and-D player, but
if they're one piece away, then why not sell the future?
Then I'll wait. Next draft is going to be just as loaded as this one. I'll wait for next year.
One piece away. Every team thinks they're always one
piece away. This
is New
York. You can't wait.
Yeah, they're a LeBron James away.
I say that team sucked for how long? Like they've been waiting all their lives. I ain't going to that.
The one thing that I do think would be insane though for New York, just in general, the city.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if the Jets and the Knicks both took Oklahoma players? Baker Mayfield and Trae Young coming to New York.
I feel like Ricky's really trying to sell me on Trae Young to the Knicks.
No,
like
but
the
I'm
best
just
answer.
I was trying to do that.
He brought it up, and I'm like,
a little bit.
Could you imagine if that just for a city of New York, the most polarizing Oklahoma players this year, both come to the city at the same time?
I don't know.
I think that'd be really cool. For
I don't think it matters.
Is New York
Oklahoma
big
would care more than
Sooners
New
fans?
York. Yeah, it would be an Oklahoma thing. It wouldn't be a New York thing. Nobody from New York would care.
I think it would be a thing in like NFL, NBA talk.
Nah. I mean, Oklahoma, where they have no other news, like that's some pretty big stuff.
They might say
going
like
on.
which one's gonna be better, like which player.
Yeah, which rookie's gonna be better.
Yeah,
we'll compare different sports.
Final thoughts on the New York Knicks and their draft prospects. Anything that you really want to stick out? Are you sold on Trae Young, Dave?
I mean, you guys are making a compelling case. If he's available
at
9.
Like, if he's at 9, why not?
You
hide he's at 9, why not?
You hide Frank's deficiencies on offense. You hide Trae's deficiencies on defense.
I think that would be, lock me in for Trae Young. If he's available at 9, I got him there. If he's not, I'm looking at, if Trae's gone and Mikhail's gone, I'm going wild card on this shit. I'll go like Shea jumps into the conversation.
And like, I don't want to say this because it's kind of like there's always one of these in every draft, but I kind of feel like if they slot in at 9, there's really a can't miss. They can only they can almost take any.
Well, here's the thing.
They can take a point guard. They can take a small forward. They can take a big. and you could be happy with that pick at
But
9.
also, they might be able to fill what they need, but they might pick the wrong player because there's so many players that fit that mold. Like if they take Shea and they pass it to Colin Sexton,
pops off,
and if Colin Sexton becomes like the Donovan Mitchell, you're screwed.
Barring we get a Papa John situation from the Knicks here, which I don't think they will, but we didn't think the Knicks or the Kings would either.
Even if their pick doesn't work out for them, they could just send him down to the Hawks for a couple years and pick him up on a fully loaded contract, get him back after he came out of the hyperbolic time chamber, lock it down.
There we go. That's where we're going to end it for the segment and also for the podcast. Dave Oster with the Atlanta, bringing the Atlanta Hawks in.
Yep.
Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the podcast. Tell us who you think the biggest or the best fits for the New York Knicks in this draft are. Let us know in the comments down below. If you listened on iTunes, big shout out to you. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars. The camera went dead, but we're almost done anyways. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars on iTunes. The Primetime Podcast, the Rick and Johnny Podcast, the Fast Break Podcast, the Onside Kick, and the new Outcast. And since we're at it, a new episode should be coming out this weekend, so definitely check it out on the YouTubes. They talked Final Four. They talked
Bulls,
Bears,
Masters.
So check Buzz and Juice out over there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get up. We're over 10K due to beautiful people.
We're almost at 10.2.
There we go. So that's a big shout out to everyone there. If you're listening on Buck Talk Radio, huge shout out to you as well. And don't miss anything from MVP by checking out mostvaluablepodcast.com or head over to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast if you want to support us in a different way. But anyways, for Dave Oster, for Rick Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time.